I was standing in my son's kitchen, holding a homemade apple pie, when he slapped me across the face. His wife Amanda stood 3 feet away, smirking like she'd just won something. My cheek burned, my ears rang. Derek looked at me with cold eyes I didn't recognize and said, "You're old. Know your place." I touched my face, said nothing, picked up my keys, and walked out. That night, alone in my truck at a rest stop 2 hours from home, I opened my phone and pulled up the document. ED kept filed away for 23 years. The land deed, 5 acres. The property his house sat on. My name was on it. Always had been. My name is Edwin. I'm 67 years old, and until 4 years ago, I had a wife who understood me better than I understood myself. Helen was her name. We were married for 32 years before cancer took her from me. She died in our bedroom on a Tuesday morning in April, holding my hand, telling me she loved me and that I needed to be strong for what was coming. I didn't know what she meant then. I think I do now. Helen and I bought those 5 acres back when Derek was 15 years old. It was 2002, and I'd just finished a big contracting job that paid better than anything I'd done before. I was a general contractor my whole adult life, built houses and commercial buildings all over North Carolina. The work was hard, the hours were long, but it was honest. I took pride in it. When I saw that land, 5 acres of flat, beautiful property just outside Charlotte, I knew it was where I wanted to retire. Helen and I talked about building our dream house there. We sketched floor plans on napkins at diners. We imagined a wraparound porch and a garden for Helen. But life had other plans. Derek got married 12 years ago to a woman named Amanda. She came from money, the kind of family that summered in the Outer Banks and drove cars with that new car smell year-round. I could tell right away she thought I was beneath her, but I kept my mouth shut because Derek seemed happy. When they started talking about building a house, I offered them the land. Helen warned me. She said, "Edwin, keep the deed in your name, just in case." I asked her what she meant, and she said, "Family can change, honey. People forget where they came from." I laughed it off. I told her Derek would never be like that. He was my son. I'd raised him right. So I let Derek build on my land, but I kept the deed in my name. I even helped him financially. $60,000 I gave him for construction costs. He built a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial house with white shutters and a 2-car garage. Amanda decorated it like something out of a magazine. I was proud of him. I thought I'd done right by my son. But things changed after the wedding. At first, it was small stuff. Fewer invitations to dinner. Shorter phone calls. When I'd ask about visiting my grandson, Ethan, there were always excuses. Amanda was tired. Derek was busy with work. Ethan had playdates. I tried not to take it personally. I downsized to a small rental apartment after Helen died because the memories in our old house were too heavy to carry alone. I figured Derek and Amanda needed their space, needed to build their own family without an old man hovering around. The comments started subtly. Amanda would make remarks about my outdated opinions or my working-class mentality. Once, at a family barbecue, she told her friends I was charmingly rustic, like I was some kind of antique. Derek would laugh along, and that hurt worse than anything Amanda said. My son, the boy I'd worked 50-hour weeks to put through college, was embarrassed by me. The day of the slap, I'd driven 3 hours from my apartment to bring Ethan his birthday pie. The boy was turning 7, and I knew apple pie was his favorite because I'd made it for him every birthday since he was old enough to eat solid food. I hadn't been invited to the party. Derek stopped answering my calls 2 weeks earlier when I asked about plans, so I showed up unannounced, hoping they'd at least let me see my grandson for a few minutes. Amanda answered the door in an expensive-looking dress, her face immediately tightening when she saw me. "Edwin," she said, not hi or come in, just my name like it was a problem to solve. "We're busy preparing for the party." I could see inside past her shoulder, new furniture everywhere, leather couches that probably cost more than I made in a month back when I was working. A massive flat-screen television mounted on the wall. Through the window, I saw a brand new luxury SUV in the driveway, gleaming silver with temporary tags still in the window. Then Ethan came running. "Grandpa," he shouted, wrapping his little arms around my legs. That kid's hug was the first thing that had felt right in months. "Are you staying for my party?" Amanda's hand came down on his shoulder, firm. "Ethan, Grandpa can't stay." He didn't RSVP. I looked at my grandson, saw the disappointment in his face, and felt something crack inside my chest. "I just wanted to bring you this, buddy," I said, holding up the pie. "Made it special, just like always." Ethan's eyes lit up, but before he could say anything, Amanda cut in. "That's very thoughtful, Edwin, but we have a custom cake from the bakery. We won't need pie." I saw Ethan holding an iPad, his face illuminated by whatever game he was playing. Without thinking, I said, "Maybe he could put that down for a bit, get some fresh air before all his friends arrive." Amanda's face went hard as stone. "We don't need parenting advice from someone whose generation raised emotionally unavailable men." The words hit me like a physical blow. I opened my mouth to respond, but then Derek appeared in the hallway behind her. My son looked stressed, his tie loosened, his hair messy. When he saw me, his expression shifted from confusion to irritation. "Dad, why are you here?" Not "good to see you" or "thanks for coming." Just "why are you here?" Like I was a door-to-door salesman. "I brought Ethan his pie," I said, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. "I wanted to see him on his birthday." Derek's face reddened. "You always do this. Show up uninvited, judge how we live, make us feel inadequate." "I'm not judging anyone," I said. "I just wanted to see my grandson." "You're suffocating us." Derek's voice rose, and I saw neighbors' curtains move across the street. "You're a lonely old man trying to live through our family because you don't have a life of your own." The words cut deeper than any saw blade I'd ever slipped with. "Derek," I said, my voice breaking, "I'm your father. I love you." That's when he hit me. His open palm connected with my left cheek, hard enough that my head snapped to the side. The room went silent. I heard Ethan start crying somewhere behind Amanda. My ear rang, my cheek burned hot, and I knew it would bruise. Amanda pulled Ethan away, whispering something I couldn't hear. Derek stood there, breathing hard, his hand still raised slightly like he couldn't believe what had just done. But then his face hardened again, and he said, "You're old. Know your place. This is our house, our life. Stop trying to control us." I bent down slowly, picked up the pie I'd dropped. The tin was dented, the crust cracked. I looked at my son one more time, searching for any sign of the boy I'd raised, the kid I'd taught to ride a bike and helped with homework and held when he cried after his first heartbreak. I didn't see him. I saw a stranger. I walked to my truck without saying another word. My hands shook so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. I drove for 2 hours before I had to pull over at a rest stop because I couldn't see through my tears. That's when I opened my glove compartment and found the folder Helen had made me promise to keep. Inside was the original land deed, property tax receipts going back 23 years, and a letter in Helen's handwriting. I'd read it once, right after she died, then put it away because it hurt too much. But now I unfolded it and read it again by the dome light of my truck. "Edwin," it said, "if you're reading this, something's gone wrong with Derek. I saw changes in him before I died. Honey, he was becoming someone I didn't recognize. The way he talked about money, the way Amanda influenced him, it worried me. I never told you because you loved him so much, and I didn't want to hurt you. But I need you to remember something. That land is yours. You worked 50-hour weeks for 30 years to buy it. You sacrificed your dreams so Derek could have his. Don't let anyone make you feel powerless. You built Derek's life. If he tears you down, you have every right to rebuild your own." I asked him one question. "Do I still own that property?" Frank was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Edwin, let me pull the documents. Call you back in 10. Those 10 minutes felt like 10 hours. When my phone rang, Frank's voice was careful. "You own it, Edwin. The deed was never transferred. Legally, Derek is what we'd call a tenant at will. He has your permission to use the land, but that permission can be revoked at any time. What happens to the house? I asked. The house is his property, but it's sitting on your land. If you revoke permission, he'd have to move the house or demolish it. Moving a house that size would cost anywhere from $80,000 to $120,000. Demolition's cheaper, but then he loses everything. Can I sell the land? The question came out of me before I'd fully thought it through. Frank sighed. Edwin, yes, you can sell it, but this would devastate your relationship with your son. Are you sure you want to go down this road? I touched my bruised cheek. Frank, I don't think I have a son anymore. Over the next 3 days, I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. His name was Jack Morrison, a retired police officer I'd worked with years ago on a commercial building project. I told Jack I needed to know the truth about how Derek and Amanda talked about me when I wasn't around. What Jack found out broke my heart all over again. Amanda had been telling her family that I was senile and becoming a burden. Shed told her mother that Derek needed to establish boundaries with the old man before he gets worse. Derek had told his colleagues at his marketing firm that I was emotionally manipulative and guilt-tripped them constantly. He painted me as some kind of toxic presence they were heroically tolerating. But the worst part was what Jack learned about Ethan. Amanda had instructed him not to call me anymore. She told him Grandpa is sick and needs rest. Ethan had been asking about me, wanting to talk to me, and she was blocking it. My grandson thought I didn't want to see him. Jack also found financial records I hadn't thought to look for. He'd been sending Derek $200 a month for years. Money, he said, was to help with property taxes on the land. I pulled up my bank statements and did the math. Property taxes on that land were $800 a year. He'd been sending him $2,400 annually. It overpaid by nearly $1,500 every single year for 5 years. Then I found the loans. $3,000 for car repairs that Jack confirmed never happened. $5,000 for Ethan's medical bills. But Ethan had never had any medical problems that year. Over 5 years, Derek had taken approximately $18,000 from me under false pretenses. I drove to Helen's grave that afternoon. It was a Thursday, overcast, the kind of day where the sky matches your mood. I sat on the grass next to her headstone and cried harder than I had since the day we buried her. I told her she'd been right. I told her I should have listened. I told her I didn't know what to do. But I did know. Deep down, I knew exactly what I had to do. That evening, my phone buzzed with a voicemail. I didn't recognize the number, but when I played it, I heard Amanda's voice. She must have thought she was talking to someone else. Must have pocket-dialed me by accident. I know, Mom, Amanda's voice said, clear as day. Well, just wait until Edwin dies. Derek will inherit everything. And we can finally sell that dump apartment he's renting and put the money toward Ethan's private school. Another 5 years, 10 tops. Hez already 67. I listened to that message 3 times. Each time, something inside me got harder, colder. They weren't just disrespecting me. They were waiting for me to die so they could cash in. I called Frank. Draw up the papers, I said. I'm selling the land. Find me a buyer immediately. Frank worked fast. Within 2 days, Head contacted a developer named Patricia Browning, who'd been trying to buy land in that area for 2 years. The property was in a rapidly developing suburban zone, perfect for commercial use. Patricia offered $190,000, well above market value, because she wanted the location and didn't care about the house on it. She plans to demolish the structure, Frank told me. Build a small commercial plaza. Are you sure about this, Edwin? I thought about the slap. I thought about Amanda's smirk. I thought about that voicemail. Amanda casually discussing my death like it was a financial planning opportunity. Sell it, I said. The process moved faster than I expected. Patricia paid cash, waived inspection because she was tearing everything down anyway. The sale closed in 9 days. $190,000, minus legal fees and taxes, left me with about $163,000. More money than I'd seen in one place since Helen died. Frank prepared the eviction notice required by North Carolina law. Derek had 30 days to remove the house or vacate the property. 30 days to figure out how to move a 4-bedroom colonial or watch it get demolished. I took precautions. I opened a new bank account at a different institution and transferred all my money there. I changed my phone number and gave the new one only to Frank and Jack. I didn't want Derek calling me, screaming at me, trying to guilt me into reversing the sale. Then I wrote a letter, 4 pages long, single-spaced, detailing everything. The deed I'd kept in my name on Helen's advice. The years of disrespect and cruelty, the financial exploitation, with bank statements attached as proof, Amanda's voicemail about waiting for me to die, with a transcript included, the slap, and how it was the final breaking point but not the only reason. I made copies of this letter to be delivered to Derek, Amanda, and Amanda's parents simultaneously with the eviction notice. I wanted everyone to know the truth. I wanted Amanda's parents to see what their daughter had become. I wanted Derek to face what he'd done in writing, in detail, with evidence he couldn't deny. The day before the notices were served, I drove past Derek's house one final time. I parked down the street, far enough away that they wouldn't notice me. Ethan was in the front yard, kicking a soccer ball, laughing at something. My heart broke watching him. This wasn't his fault. He was 7 years old, innocent, caught in the middle of adult cruelty. I almost called Frank right then, almost told him to stop everything. But then I saw Amanda and Derek come out the front door, loading expensive luggage into that silver SUV. Jack called me at the same moment. "Edwin," he said, "they're going to the Bahamas. Just posted about it on social media. 5-day luxury vacation. They're spending money while telling you they need help with bills." I watched them drive away, probably heading to the airport, completely unaware of what was waiting for them when they got back. I felt the last thread of doubt snap inside me. "Frank," I said into the phone, "serve the papers tomorrow morning while they're gone. I want them to find it when they come home." "Edwin," Frank said carefully, "they'll be blindsided." "Good," I said. So was I when my son hit me. Derek and Amanda returned from their vacation on a Tuesday afternoon. They were tanned, relaxed, still wearing their resort wristbands. They pulled into their driveway and saw a large manila envelope taped to their front door. I wasn't there, but Jack told me later what happened. Head parked across the street, watching, making sure they actually received the documents. He said Amanda reached the door first, tore open the envelope, and started reading. Her face went from confused to pale in about 15 seconds. "Derek," she said, her voice high and tight, "what is this?" Derek took the papers from her hands. The eviction notice was on top, stamped and official. Underneath it were the sale documents showing the property had already been transferred to Patricia Browning. Then my letter, 4 pages of painful truth. Then the evidence, bank statements, the voicemail transcript, the original land deed. Jack said Derek read everything twice, like he couldn't process what he was seeing. "This can't be legal," Derek said. "Dad can't just sell our land. Your land." Amanda's voice cracked. "You told me he gave you this property." "You said it was ours." Derek fumbled for his phone, dialed my old number. Disconnected. He called again. Same result. His hands were shaking, Jack said. Amanda was pacing in circles, reading my letter over and over. They called Frank's office. Frank's paralegal put them through, and Frank explained everything in his calm, professional voice. Yes, the sale was legal. Yes, Edwin had every right to sell property he owned. Yes, they had 30 days to act. No, there was no legal recourse. "But he's my father," Derek shouted into the phone, loud enough that Jack heard it from across the street. "Your father has documentation of assault, financial exploitation, and familial alienation." Frank said, "I suggest you consult your own attorney." They hired a lawyer that same day, Gerald Simmons, a guy who advertised on bus benches. Gerald reviewed everything and delivered the news they didn't want to hear. They had no case. The deed had never been in Derek's name. Edwin had every right to sell. The house was theirs, but the land wasn't. They had 23 days left to figure out what to do. Their options were simple and terrible. Pay to move the house, which would cost between $80,000 and $120,000, or demolish it and rebuild somewhere else, which meant losing everything. They didn't have that kind of money. Derek and Amanda had been living beyond their means for years, keeping up appearances with Amanda's wealthy family, spending on vacations and cars and private school deposits for Ethan. Amanda's parents refused to help. When Amanda called them crying, her mother said, "You told us Edwin gave you that land. You said it was settled. This is your mess, Amanda." The neighborhood found out within days. These things always spread fast in suburban communities. The eviction notice had been public record. People talked. And some of those people remembered how Derek and Amanda had treated me at neighborhood gatherings. One neighbor, a woman named Carolyn, who lived 3 doors down, stopped Amanda in the driveway. "I saw how you treated that sweet man at the HOA barbecue last summer," Carolyn said. "You called him embarrassing right to his face. Maybe this is karma. Derek's reputation at work took a hit too." When his coworkers found out Ed hit his elderly father, several of them looked at him differently. One guy who'd been friendly before started avoiding him in the break room. Derek's boss called him into the office for what he called a conversation about company values. At home, Derek and Amanda's marriage started cracking under the pressure. Amanda blamed Derek entirely. "This is your father," she screamed during an argument. Jack overheard through an open window. "Your failure. I came from a good family, and you've dragged me into white trash drama," Derek fired back. "You're the one who kept pushing me to cut him off. You said he was toxic. You said we needed boundaries." Ethan heard these fights. He was 7 years old enough to understand that something was terribly wrong, not old enough to process it healthily. One night, he asked, "Why can't Grandpa come over anymore? I miss him." Amanda snapped at him, her stress overflowing, "Because Grandpa is mean and selfish." Ethan started crying. "No, he's not. You're mean. Grandpa always played with me. Grandpa made me pie. Derek tried everything to reach me. He left voicemails at my old number, not knowing it was disconnected. He sent emails to an address it abandoned. He drove to my old apartment and found a new family living there. In desperation, he showed up at Frank's office, demanding to see me. Frank met him in the lobby, professional and unmoved. "Edwin doesn't want contact. Respect his wishes," Derek's voice broke. "Please, Frank. I'll apologize. I'll fix this. Has my dad." Frank looked at Derek with something like pity. "You had 67 years to treat him like your dad. You hit him instead." With 1 week left before forced eviction, Derek's phone rang. Patricia Browning, the developer, was calling. Derek answered with desperate hope. "Mr. Collins," Patricia said, "I have a proposal. I'll pay you $50,000 for the house structure. I'll handle the logistics of moving it or salvaging the materials. You walk away with something instead of nothing." Derek closed his eyes, felt his world narrow to this one terrible choice. "Yes," he said. "Okay. Good," Patricia said. "I'll have my people draw up the papers. But Mr. Collins, I want you to know something. Your father didn't just sell me land. He told me why he was selling. About a son who forgot where he came from. I grew up poor, built my business from nothing. I would never treat my parents the way you treated yours. This deal is me being more generous than you deserve." The line went dead. Derek stood there holding his phone, realizing that even this small mercy came with judgment. His father had made sure everyone knew what Derek had done. Derek and Amanda moved out in 5 days. They found a rental house in a less desirable neighborhood. A small 3-bedroom with dated appliances and a yard barely big enough for Ethan to play in. The house was half the size of what they'd lost, with carpet that smelled faintly of old pets and a kitchen with linoleum floors from the 1980s. Amanda stopped posting on social media entirely. The shame was too heavy to carry publicly. Derek worked extra hours at his marketing job, trying to rebuild their savings, trying to figure out how they'd recover from this. But the worst part was Ethan. He kept asking about me, kept wondering why Grandpa didn't visit anymore, why Grandpa didn't call. Derek finally sat him down at their new kitchen table and tried to explain. Grandpa and Daddy had a big disagreement, Derek said, the words catching in his throat. Ethan looked at him with those 7-year-old eyes, too wise for his age now. Did you say sorry? I tried, buddy. He won't talk to me. You always tell me to say sorry when I mean, Ethan said. Why won't Grandpa listen? Derek had no answer. The question followed him everywhere, an echo he couldn't escape. Why won't Grandpa listen? Because Derek had taught me I didn't matter. Because Derek had shown me my place was beneath him. Because some damage runs too deep for simple apologies. At night, Derek started remembering things head buried. Me teaching him to ride a bike, running alongside him on our street until my lungs burned, refusing to let go until he was ready. Me at every single Little League game. Even the ones that went into extra innings on weeknights when I had to be up at 5 the next morning for work. Me helping him with college applications, reading his essays, cheering when he got accepted to NC State. He remembered his mother, 3 days before she died, holding his hand and saying, "Your father sacrificed everything for you, Derek. Don't forget that. Don't ever forget that." But he had forgotten. Worse than that, had actively rejected it. Pushed it away because it was easier to live in Amanda's world of appearances and status than to honor where Head come from. Amanda was changing too, though Derek didn't see it at first. Her parents visited the new house once. Her mother looked around with barely concealed disgust, whispering to her father, "This is what happens when you marry down." Amanda overheard it. For the first time, she heard her mother's cruelty directed at her, and she recognized it. She'd been saying the same kinds of things about me for years, about Derek's family, about people who didn't have money or status. She'd become her mother, and the realization hit her like cold water. She started watching Ethan more carefully. He was drawing pictures, hiding them in his drawer. One day, while putting away laundry, she found them. Pictures of a house with a wraparound porch, pictures of an old man with a big smile. Words in crayon. "For Grandpa Edwin and I miss you, Grandpa, and come back, please." Amanda sat on Ethan's bed and cried. What had she done? What had she turned her husband into? What had she taught her son about love and family? 3 months after the eviction, Derek ran into Jack at a grocery store. Jack was buying coffee, and Derek was in the cereal aisle, reaching for the cheap store brand because money was tight. They made eye contact, and Jack started to walk away. "Please," Derek called after him. "How is he? Is he okay?" Jack stopped, turned around, studied Derek with the flat, assessing gaze of someone who'd spent 30 years reading people as a cop. "Why do you care?" "Has my father," Derek said, and his voice broke on the word father. "I know I don't deserve to ask, but is he healthy? Is he safe?" Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Hess fine. Better than fine, actually. Hess living life on his terms now. Can you give him a message?" Derek's hands were shaking. "Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him I was wrong about everything. Tell him I love him." "I'll tell him," Jack said. "Don't expect a response." Derek started writing letters. He mailed them to Frank's office because it was the only address he had. 1 letter a week, sometimes 2. The first letter was an apology for the slap. 3 pages of Derek trying to explain the unexplainable, trying to take responsibility for the unforgivable. He didn't make excuses. He just said, "I hit my father. There's no justification. I was wrong. I'm sorry." The second letter was about the money. Derek enclosed a check for $200, all he could afford. "I stole from you," he wrote. "I lied about expenses and took your money. I'll pay back every dollar. It'll take time, but I'll do it." The third letter was different. No apologies, just memories. "Dad, I remember when you taught me to use a level. I was 8 years old, and you let me help you build that bookshelf for Mom. You were so patient. You showed me how to measure twice and cut once. I remember you missing sleep to help me with my science project in 6th grade. I remember everything I tried to forget." The fourth letter was the hardest to write. I don't expect forgiveness. I just need you to know. I was wrong. You were never the problem. I was. I became someone Mom would be ashamed of. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be the son you deserved." Amanda wrote her own letter, separate from Derek's. She didn't tell him she was doing it. She wrote at their kitchen table after Ethan went to bed, crying so hard the ink smudged. "Edwin," she wrote, "I don't have the right to call you Dad, so I won't pretend. My parents raised me to value status over character. I learned cruelty from my mother and judgment from my father. I brought that poison into your son's life, and am sorry. I influenced Derek against you. I made him feel guilty for loving his father. I cut you off from Ethan because I was embarrassed by you, and that shame is mine to carry. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you not to forget Ethan. He's innocent. He loves you. He cries for you at night. Whatever you think of Derek and me, please don't punish him." She mailed it the next day before she could change her mind. 2 weeks later, a package arrived. No return address. Inside was a check for $18,000 made out to Derek Collins. There was a note in my handwriting, just a few lines. "I don't want your money. I never did. I wanted my son. Consider this your inheritance. Use it for Ethan's education. Be a better father than you were a son." Derek opened the envelope at the kitchen table. When he saw the check, he made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. Amanda found him on the floor, clutching the note, crying harder than Shed ever seen him cry. She read the note, and they cried together. They realized I was watching them somehow, still caring, still hoping they'd change, still believing in redemption even after everything. 6 months after the eviction, Derek and Amanda's lives looked completely different. Derek got promoted at work. His boss noticed how the crisis had changed him, made him more humble, more genuine. Derek stopped pretending to be someone he wasn't, stopped trying to keep up with colleagues who had family money. The authenticity showed in his work and how he treated people. Amanda started volunteering at a senior living center called Sunset Acres. 3 days a week, she read to residents, helped with activities, listened to their stories. She needed to see people like me. People Shed, dismissed, and judged as fully human. It was changing her. One woman, 92 years old, told Amanda, "You remind me of my daughter-in-law. She thought I was embarrassing too. Now she doesn't visit at all. Don't waste time on pride, honey. Life's too short." Ethan was thriving in public school, without the pressure of private academy expectations. Head relaxed, made real friends, kids from all kinds of backgrounds. He was becoming kinder, more empathetic. Derek saw glimpses of the values I'd tried to teach him coming out in his son. Their marriage, tested by crisis, was growing stronger. They talked now, really talked, about their mistakes and fears and hopes. They'd stopped blaming each other and started rebuilding together. Then Ethan's teacher, Mrs. Sharon Caldwell, assigned a family tree project. Ethan included me prominently in his drawing, right at the center. He wrote under my name, "My grandpa Edwin is a hero. He worked hard his whole life. I miss him." At parent-teacher conferences, Mrs. Caldwell mentioned it to Derek and Amanda. "Ethan talks about Edwin often," she said gently. "Is there estrangement in the family?" Derek and Amanda looked at each other, embarrassed. "A family disagreement," Derek said vaguely. Mrs. Caldwell leaned forward. "I don't mean to pry, but I want to tell you something. I didn't speak to my father for 8 years after a fight about my career choices. He died of a heart attack before we could reconcile. I never got to tell him I was sorry. I never got to hear him say he was proud of me. Don't let pride cost you time. We never get it back." Derek thought about those words for days. Finally, he called Frank again. "Will he see me?" Derek asked. "Face to face? I need to try." Frank sighed. "He'll ask him, Derek. But Edwin's built a new life. Don't expect him to give that up for you." Days passed, with no response. Derek respected the silence, but didn't stop hoping. Through Jack, Derek learned pieces of my new life. Id used the money from the land sale to buy a small cottage near the Blue Ridge Mountains, a place with a view of the peaks and enough land for a garden. I was volunteering at a youth center, teaching carpentry to teenagers who reminded me of myself at that age, kids who needed to know their hands could build something worthwhile. Jack told Derek I seemed content. I hiked, read books on my porch, had dinner with neighbors who knew nothing about my past. But Jack also mentioned something Derek held onto. I kept a photo on my mantle. A picture of Derek as a little boy, maybe 6 years old, sitting on my shoulders at a park. Hez healing, Jack told Derek. But Hez not over it. He still loves you. Hez just protecting himself. Then Ethan did something on his own. He wrote me a letter at school, with Mrs. Caldwell's help to find Frank's address. Ethan's handwriting was careful, the letters big and uneven. Dear Grandpa, it said. I'm 8 now. I'm sorry Daddy made you sad. I still love you. I made you a birdhouse in art class. Mrs. Caldwell says you like building things. Can I send it to you? I miss you every day. Love, Ethan. P.S. Daddy cries sometimes. I think he misses you too. I received that letter on a Thursday afternoon. I read it sitting on my porch, and I read it again, and then I called Jack. Tell me the truth, I said. Has Derek really changed? Jack had been quietly monitoring Derek and Amanda at my request, though Id told him I didn't care. Edwin, Jack said. He returned every dollar. He writes you letters every week, never demands a response. He lives modestly now, puts Ethan first. I think you got through to him. The question is, can you forgive him? I forgave him the day I sold that land, I said. The question is, can I trust him again? I thought about it for 2 days. Then I called Frank. Set up a meeting, I said. But I have conditions. Frank relayed my terms to Derek. We'd meet at a neutral location, a park bench near where the old property used to be. 1 year to the day after the slap. Derek had to come alone first. If the conversation went well, Amanda and Ethan could join us after 30 minutes. Derek agreed before Frank even finished explaining. Derek arrived at the park 15 minutes early. I watched him from my truck, parked where he couldn't see me. He was pacing, checking his watch, running his hands through his hair. Had lost weight. He looked older, worn down in a way that had nothing to do with age and everything to do with regret. I got out of my truck and walked toward him. When he saw me, he froze. I looked different too, healthier than the last time Had seen me. He'd put on some weight from eating better, gotten tan from working outside. I wasn't the broken old man Had slapped. I was someone who'd rebuilt himself. We sat down on the bench. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said what needed to be said. You hit me. Your wife laughed. You told me to know my place. Why should I forgive that? Derek's voice was steady, but tears ran down his face. You shouldn't. I don't forgive me, but I'm asking anyway. Not because I deserve it, but because I've learned something this year. I learned that being your son was a privilege I threw away. I learned that pride is poison. I learned that Mom was right. You sacrificed everything, and I took it for granted. You didn't just take me for granted, I said. You stole from me, lied to me, cut me out of my grandson's life. I know, Derek said. Amanda and I were caught up in appearances, in keeping up with her parents' expectations. We became people we're ashamed of. Why did you let her treat me like that? I asked. Why did you stand there while she called me embarrassing and outdated and rustic? Derek looked down at his hands. Because it was easier than admitting I was wrong. Easier than standing up to her family. I was a coward, Dad. I'm still trying not to be. I pulled out Ethan's letter from my jacket pocket. Your son wrote to me, I said. He built me a birdhouse. Has a good kid, Derek. Don't screw him up the way you almost screwed yourself up. Derek's face crumpled. I'm trying, Dad. I promise I'm trying. I just wish I could go back and do everything differently. You can't go back, I said. None of us can. But you can go forward better. I signaled to Frank, who was waiting by his car with Amanda and Ethan. They started walking toward us. Ethan saw me, and his face lit up like sunrise. He ran, full speed, crashed into me with a hug that nearly knocked me off the bench. "Grandpa, you got my letter. Did you like the birdhouse?" I held him tight. Felt my heart piece itself back together. "I loved it, buddy. It's hanging on my porch right now. Blue jays are already checking it out." Amanda approached slowly, her eyes red. "Edwin," she said, "I owe you an apology that words can't cover. I was cruel. I was shallow. I'm trying to be better." I looked at her carefully. "Are you? Or are you just saying that?" "I volunteer at Sunset Senior Living now," she said. 3 days a week. I read to residents, help with activities. I needed to see people like you, people I dismissed, as fully human. It changed me. I studied her face, looking for the smirk I remembered. It wasn't there. In its place was something raw and honest. Shame, yes, but also genuine change. "Here's my offer," I said. "We start over, slowly. I'm not moving back into your lives like nothing happened. You'll visit me once a month. Well, build trust the way you build a house. One board at a time, making sure the foundation is solid. Anything," Derek said. "Whatever you need." I looked at him hard. "And Derek, if you ever raise your hand to anyone in anger again, if you ever teach Ethan that violence is acceptable, we're done, permanently." "Never," Derek said, his voice fierce. "I swear to you, never." Over the following months, we rebuilt our relationship piece by careful piece. Derek, Amanda, and Ethan visited me once a month at my cottage. I taught Ethan carpentry, the same way Id taught Derek decades ago. We built a small shed together, Ethan measuring and sawing under my supervision, his face serious with concentration. Derek helped me with projects around my property. We didn't talk much while we worked, but the silence was comfortable now, not heavy. Amanda brought meals, told me stories about the residents at Sunset Acres, how listening to their lives had opened her eyes to her own privilege and blindness. Slowly, carefully, trust grew back. Not like it was before, because it couldn't be, but something new and maybe stronger because it was built on truth instead of assumption. 1 year after our reunion, my 70th birthday arrived. Derek and Amanda threw me a party at my cottage. Nothing fancy, just close friends and family. Jack came, and Frank, and some of my neighbors. Ethan had been working on a secret project for weeks. He presented me with a photo album. Inside were pictures of Derek as a child. Photos I thought Id lost. Ethan had asked Derek for them, arranged them chronologically, mixed them with new photos of Ethan and me working together in my workshop. The final page had a handwritten note from Derek. "Dad, you taught me that love isn't about what we own or where we live. It's about showing up, doing the work, and never giving up on people. I gave up on you. You never gave up on me. Thank you for selling that land. It was the best gift you ever gave me. You gave me the chance to find myself again. Happy birthday. I love you. Derek." I stood up to speak, my voice catching. Everyone gathered around, and I said what I'd been thinking about for months. "I'm going to tell you all something important. When Derek hit me, I had a choice. I could have stayed quiet, accepted disrespect, kept giving. But Helen taught me something before she died. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's enabling. When we love people, we owe them the truth, even when the truth hurts. Especially when the truth hurts." I looked at Derek. "Son, I sold that land because I loved you enough to let you fail. I loved you enough to step back and let consequences teach you what my words couldn't. That's what real love does. It builds people up, but sometimes it has to tear down the false structures first." I looked at Ethan. "Buddy, remember this. Respect isn't about age or money or status. It's about recognizing the humanity in everyone. Your dad forgot that for a while, but he remembered, and that's what matters. Not that we fall, but that we get back up." I looked at Amanda. "You've changed more than anyone. You learned that character beats status every time. Keep teaching that to Ethan, As the party wound down, Derek and I stood on my porch, watching Ethan chase fireflies in my yard. "Dad," Derek said, "I have something for you." He handed me an envelope. Inside was a deed to 3 acres of land, adjacent to my property. "I've been saving," he said. "It's not much, but it's yours. No strings. I can't give you back what I took, but I can give you this. Space to grow, to build, to live. Just like you gave me." I couldn't speak. Tears ran down my face, and I pulled Derek into a hug. "You never stopped being my son," I said. "You just forgot how for a while." Welcome home, Derek. That night, standing on my porch under a sky full of stars, I thought about everything. The slap, the land sale, the year of silence, the slow rebuilding. And I realized something Helen had known all along. Pain has a purpose. It teaches us who we are. When everything is stripped away, Derek learned he was stronger than his pride. Amanda learned she was kinder than her upbringing. Ethan learned that love is action, not just words. And me? I learned that letting go and holding on aren't opposites. Sometimes they're the same thing. Sometimes you have to let people fall to teach them how to stand. That's not cruelty. That's love, the kind that lasts, the kind that builds character instead of just comfort, the kind Helen tried to teach me before she died. I looked at the photo Derek had found, the one of him as a little boy on my shoulders. Then I looked at the new pictures of Ethan and me in the workshop. 3 generations of lessons learned the hard way. Helen was right about everything. Family can change. People forget where they came from. But they can also remember. They can also come home. And when they do, when they've earned their way back through genuine change and hard work and humility, that homecoming means more than if they'd never left. Because they know now what it costs. They know what they almost lost, and they'll never take it for granted again. I went inside my cottage, put the photo album on my mantel next to Helen's picture, and felt something I hadn't felt in 2 years. Peace. Not the absence of pain, but peace that comes from knowing you did the right thing, even when the right thing hurt like hell. Love isn't always soft. Sometimes it's a slap back, a boundary drawn, a consequence delivered. Sometimes love looks like selling someone's land out from under them because they need to learn they don't own you. And sometimes, if you're lucky, and if they're willing to change, love looks like a second chance, a rebuilt relationship, a grandson learning carpentry in your workshop, a son who finally understands what his father gave him. Helen would be proud of Derek for changing, of me for being strong enough to let him fall and patient enough to help him stand back up. I miss her every day, but I hear her voice in moments like this, telling me what she always told me. "Edwin, you're stronger than you think. Don't let anyone make you small. Not even family. Especially not family." I didn't let them make me small. I made myself big again, built myself back up from the broken pieces. And in doing that, I showed Derek how to do the same. That's the legacy I want to leave Ethan. Not money, or property, or things. But this. You teach people how to treat you. You set boundaries because you love yourself and you love them enough to show them who they can become. You forgive, but you don't forget, because the remembering keeps you wise. And when someone you love loses their way, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back and let the consequences teach them what your words cannot. That's what I did. That's what saved us both. Now, I want to ask you something, and I hope you'll take a moment to think about it. Have you ever had to make a hard choice to protect yourself from someone you loved? Have you ever had to set a boundary that hurt both of you but needed to be set? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd like to know I'm not alone in this. And if this story meant something to you, if it made you think or feel or remember something in your own life, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories like this one. Share it with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to protect yourself, even from family, especially from family. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for letting an old man share what he's learned the hard way. I hope it helps you in some way. Whatever you're facing, take care of yourselves, set your boundaries, Love people enough to let them grow, even if that growth means letting them fall first. And remember, you're never too old to start over. You're never too old to choose yourself. Until next time, be well.